Yeah, are we?
So,
Right.
hi, good morning. I'm really excited to have Katherine Ledger here with me this morning. She has just an amazing wealth of stories to share with us and to show us how we can be authentic in our business voice and as a way to connect with our clients and our audience. So, I just want to do a brief introduction, Catherine, before we get into our questions. Catherine is a brand storyteller and content marketer who helps B2B companies put storytelling at the heart of their marketing and content strategies. Catherine found her why by accident when she discovered the power of storytelling. But once she returned to the rat race that is the corporate world, she sustained back injuries from a
Mm.
fall. After that, she knew that business storytelling was her true why. So, Catherine, good day to you. I know it is afternoon over there in the UK.
Yeah.
So, how are you doing today? How did your day go?
It's been really good actually. It's been sunny, but we've had all about four types of weather in the UK as usual. Yeah, so it's supposed to be spring, but yeah, it's had a good day. Have you yourself? Have you had a good day?
Yes, this morning here, so it's
Oh,
beautiful day today, and it's going to be very,
oh,
very warm, so
mm,
it's gorgeous. But I wanted to get into questions. I know you have a lot to share with us, and I'm curious. As a business teller, storyteller, you emphasize the importance of sharing our mental health stories. Can you tell us why this is so important?
yeah. Well, I'm a massive advocate for sharing our stories of struggle because I believe that it doesn't show that we're weak, but it shows that we're real, relevant, resilient people, and we've got through a lot. I mean, if we've had trials in our life and we look back at what we've gone through, we're true heroes. We really are. So I kind of feel that talking about some of the struggles in our business conversations actually removes the stigma of mental health, because there still is that. And it also opens up conversations which are more compassionate and builds community and social bonding, because we're meant to be, you know, bond with each other. We're not meant to be alone, even though COVID really tested us. But yeah, so I feel that it's a topic that's very close to my heart. I've had depression and anxiety through my life, but I learned how to get the tools together to get through the bad times. And my storytelling work helps me do that as well. And I help my clients to sort of come to terms with some of the lowest points of their life where they got the greatest meaning, which they can then write into their stories. Because our stories are amazing, Juana, they really are.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible. So, out of hardship comes stories, and that's a way of healing from our stories, also. I just wanted to know a little bit about your book. You wrote a book, and what's it called?
Yeah, I've got it here actually. It's called The Story of Hope, and it's a journey from despair to freedom. And basically, at one of my lowest times, I actually uh, um, was working in a corporate and feeling really depressed because I hadn't been dealing with this depression of my life. And I went out and wrote the book in the lunch breaks, just flowed out my pen. And it's about an unlikely hero who steps over the threshold, who's been stuck in the attic of despair and isolated from the world in a black cloak. And she comes out, it's a metaphor for hard times. She comes out and she ventures out and meets a mentor who gives her a different cloak, a white one, which is really confidence and courage. She puts that on and she goes on in her journey and learns things from allies and the mentor, and finds herself on this journey of self-discovery. And she comes back and puts what she's learned into practice, and she writes everything she's learned in the back of the book, which is me, kind of what I've learned. And actually, then she uh, realizes she's the hero of her own story. So yeah, it's a very small book, but it's got a lot of emotions in it that I wasn't really allowed to, um, come to terms with when I had my biggest sort of worst time. And it's a simple book, but it just shows that we're all on this hero's journey, and we're such brave, resilient people, and we can get through anything. Yeah.
I can see that writing that book was a way for you to heal from your past experiences in your life. Did you find it that it was healing for you in a way, writing this book and just working
Yeah.
through all the emotions?
Yeah, because I'm happy to tell my story, but for 14 years, I wasn't able to talk about my brother's death, and it was a really sudden death when he was quite young, and it was really hard. And I kind of by being able to write this story is very cathartic. But I also felt that I didn't want anyone else to go through what I had, because I just wouldn't wish it on anyone. So I really wanted to help other people and use it as a platform to help people that are really struggling. I really hope to use the book to run workshops and things like that, because I actually, I really think to position our, mental health issues as us going on a hero's journey is such an important thing. And we forget, how heroic and brave we are, and we're not meant to go it alone. We're meant to, ask for help from other people. There are mentors, there are specialists who can help, there are support networks, there are friends who can help. But to go alone on your own, which I tried to do, it just doesn't work. And to be able to touch on that in our business stories and show what real people with real lives that have come through so much, I just think it helps us to connect with people.
Right, right. You mentioned holding workshops to
Yeah.
help people through grief and working
Yeah.
through that. Is that something you've done or you
I
planning
have
to?
I have done I have done it. Well, not run workshops to help people with mental health issues become leaders in the past, with two organisations, Comic Relief and Children in Need, in the past. And storytelling was part of that. But I'd love to be able to run workshops to kind of help people to, sort of realise that they were on this heroic journey, and see the stages that they go through, where they could go and ask for help, and actually look at their lives and see where they can get help and how they can get through this terrible time. And there are lots of tools I've got that I use in my own storytelling business, which I could use. So that's one of my missions, is to be able to help people, because I've struggled. I don't want them to struggle too.
How do you, how different is your life now after losing a loved one? Do you find that it changed your view on life?
Mm.
How do you
Yeah,
go through life and
yeah,
how,
I do, because when brother passed away, which was I was just started a dream job, which, just in London, and it was long hours traveling, and the shock of it all just kind of put my life on hold. And then I didn't have any more bereavements for a long time after that. But then I had a lot altogether. But I just feel that losing somebody is actually makes us realize that life's so precious. We need to enjoy every moment, and we can't be doing work that we're not happy doing. We've got to be working with clients that've got the same values as us, that we like working with. And I think that it just changes your perspective, definitely. And yeah, it makes us stronger people. I think going through that can make us better people in some ways, because it makes us more empathic.
yeah, I agree with you. It does change us, but it makes us stronger. I mean, I know it sounds cliche saying that, but we find a way to live life without the people we've lost.
Yeah,
It's
mm,
different.
it
It's not
is. Yeah,
the same. It's different, but we have the capabilities to move on, whether it's
yeah.
with them or without them. So, Catherine, why is mental health so important to share in our storytelling?
Yeah, well, it's it's kind of the catalyst for real, honest conversations. And if the story's at the heart of our message, then it makes us have a personality, a brand personality, and core values that shine out like a real person. Even if someone's not met us, it seems like more like a fireside chat. and it's it builds trust very quickly. There's been some research on it where somebody called Paul Zak did some work on it, looking at the chemistry of the brain when people listen to stories with conflict or sadness in them. And he showed a film with a young boy who had a terminal illness. And basically, the people watching, their brains were flooded with oxytocin, which is called the cuddle hormone, which is all about empathy. And they also had cortisol, which was about attention. So people pay attention and they also care. So if we're using elements of our vulnerable story, our mental health story, in our business story, because it's part of us, then we get people to lean in and listen and engage and become part of our story and get want to sort of be around us and affected by our values and part of it builds trust, and it's the currency of trust actually. So it's really important. We've got a physical health and a mental health, so we should really be bringing both and not wear a mask and just be real honest people when we have our conversations. We've all been through so much, so to hide it and pretend that we're all perfect, it does look a bit phony, a bit bland and boring, and doesn't necessarily sound like it's a real person talking if it's a virtual setting.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I noticed we've been on LinkedIn for a while now, and so I noticed I feel more of a connection with people who share some of their personal story versus people who are all business and all they talk about is business, and they never share anything personal about themselves.
No,
I find that
no,
I connect more with people who share some personal stuff, not a whole lot.
yeah,
I mean, I don't really connect with those who are like totally like put it all out there,
no,
Like we were just
no.
talking earlier. Some things you go overboard. So how do
Mm.
we keep ourselves? How do we be vulnerable without oversharing and being
Very
TMI
good
for
question.
some people?
This is a very good question. I was talking about this with Gillian Whitney, my friends, last week, and she was telling me about Brené Brown, who talks about sharing from the scar, not the wound, because if we kind of share and then we blurt it all out, all this precious stuff about our backgrounds and our families and our hurts, and it leaves us feeling very exposed, and it's a nasty feeling. You can't get it back once it's out there. You really can't. So also, if somebody overshares and does it all the time, it looks like they're being super indulgent with themselves, and they're sort of doing it just because get attention and maybe drive up the vanity metrics, which doesn't look good either. So there's a happy medium, but I think the important thing is to share something very relevant. I've got a little story that I think might help to illustrate this. Could I share it? About a customer. um, he was a sales director. He still is, and basically he helps companies develop their global sales expansion strategy. I was writing a story, and before a long time before, he'd lost everything. He'd lost his livelihood. He'd lost his house. He'd lost everything, and he had to claw back out of the trench that he was in, because we have these ditches and these mountains that we go through on our mental health on our hero's journey. And he was down in the ditches, sort of, and he did have some lovely friends who helped him. But when I talked to him about this, I said, this is a really, really good part of your story, because it shows that you're helping these companies who are doing a rescue strategy for the ones that are, they're not in good shape. This is a very good story to share as part of your business story. It would be so powerful, but it was too frightened to do it. So it was sad, because that would have been such a relevant story to share. And I think some people feel that, ashamed of the things that have happened to them, when actually there's some really powerful lessons in there that are worth sharing. So as long as we share it with relevance, I think that it's a very powerful thing to do.
Yes, as long as it's relevant to your
Mm,
business.
yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah,
so many of us have gone through our own struggles. Um, I mean, our jobs. There's so
Yeah.
many stories that we can share about our jobs. I mean, I
Yeah.
never knew how many people hated their jobs
Yeah.
until I read this book called Working by Studs Terkel.
All
Studs
right.
Terkel
Must read
called
that. Yeah.
Working.
Mm. Yeah.
And most of the people, I mean, this is a book from the 60s, 70s, and most people did not enjoy the jobs.
Yeah.
Most they
It's
had to do
sad.
to make a living,
Yeah.
you know. So can you share a little bit about what you've learned through your jobs and um,
Yeah. Yeah.
how?
I definitely, yeah, I think you spend a lot of time at work, and if you're a workaholic like I've been, spend even longer. So when I lost my brother, I went into work, and I hoped that I'd be able to talk about, my grief, but everybody avoided me and went in the coffee room, and they, ran away from me. And then they sent me to a counsellor who fell asleep on me, so it was not good. And then I had the funeral, and then a little while after we had a memorial service, but I was asked to change the date of the funeral. I mean, no. So I just no. I don't know if it helped my career by doing that, but anyway, that was not good. So that was really not. I wasn't enjoying that job, but it was. I loved the actual job itself, but the environment was not good, and some corporate environments could be very sterile. So, but there was a friend who kind of helped me and sat with me and listened to me, and she was a lifeline. Every Tuesday we had coffee. But anyway, survived that experience and went on to be a story master in a telco. It was amazing. I loved that job. I kind of blagged my way into it because I love stories. From a young age, I've always done that. Blagged my way in. I said they couldn't sell the complex portfolio very easily because a lot of the salespeople weren't technical, and they needed an easier way to sell. So I said, why don't you sell and tell with a story through your marketing? Because I was a qualified marketeer, so everything was sort of done through a story, whether it was website, mats, mugs, collateral, campaigns, partner events. Everything was done through a story, so it was just brilliant. And I made the salespeople the heroes, and they loved it. So it played to all my strengths, my creativity, everything like that. Anyway, I got some awards from that because I really was, had a major effect on the bottom line. So it was brilliant. But then I went into a business planning job, which is absolutely not me. It was very dry, lots of figures and facts, and it was not good. Um, and I started taking jobs that were nothing to do with storytelling and marketing, and it was not good. And eventually I ended up as a contractor. Again, I couldn't talk about my feelings. Everything had to be a rosy picture. You weren't allowed to talk about anything bad. You could talk about what you'd done at the weekend unless it was abseiling. If you'd read a book, that was not cool. So it was all that. So I was in totally the wrong environment. Anyway, I ended up doing something stupid. I climbed up a ladder, fell off the top rung, broke my back in two places, got
No.
concussion, blacked out, and that was it. That was the time in the ditches that taught me stay away from that environment. And that was the hero's journey, climbing back out that and realizing that you can rewrite your own story, and you can have a happy life, and you can choose the jobs that are going to give you happiness. And so I started my own storytelling business. So yeah, but I've kissed a lot of frogs. I've had some jobs that have not. And I think as well, a lot of it's been being able to be myself. And if I can't be myself in a job, there's no point in doing it really. Might as well do something else. That's how I feel. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly true. I think that everyone should try different jobs. I've had
mm,
so many different jobs,
yeah,
job coaching to managing the girls' home,
mm.
a group home for all
All right,
girls.
all
They
right, yeah,
hired me because I knew sign language and they had a deaf
yeah,
girl there who needed someone who knew sign language, but I hated that job. It was awful.
yeah, yeah,
Those girls
yeah.
were a nightmare. It's not their fault. But it
No,
was a time in my life that I wasn't happy. I was miserable at that time in my life. In my early 20s, time I would never want to revisit. But
no,
job
no.
coaching, office job, and so it really helps you see what you're good at, though. Okay, maybe
Yeah,
there's an
I
aspect of
know.
this job that you really enjoy, but you don't enjoy that particular job, and then hopefully
Yeah.
you find something that really resonates with you. So I just want to say hi to some people in the comments.
Oh.
Trisha, Jillian, joining from Las
Oh.
Vegas. Thank you for joining us today. And Trisha, Liz, powerful story, beautifully told. I agree with you, Trisha. Catherine has so many stories to share with us. And Lisa, Deco, I do love the book and the illustrations are
Oh.
gorgeous. Lovely, lovely. And then I always go back and forth with these things. B. Higgins says, lovely to hear you sharing your story,
Oh.
Catherine. I hope it helps. Hearing other people's stories really do help us to heal in some way and to make us feel less alone also.
Yeah.
Trisha,
Yeah.
Trisha says this honesty and compassion. I
Mm.
totally agree, Trisha. We need to talk about this much more than we already
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And Jillian says, thank you for the mention, Catherine. So important to share from the scar, not from the wound. I do like that quote when you said that.
Yeah.
So true. It's so true.
Actually,
It'll always be there as a reminder, but
yeah. As well, I think Gillian raised this as well, that to share the stories with the wrong people who aren't going to, might judge you. I think you've got to be careful and just, share only with people who will, learn from our precious stories, because otherwise we're vulnerable again, even more. So it's just not, we really have to be sparing in the detail and tell the relevant stuff. Definitely not splurge it all out, because, there's also a very, very, very long story. People are going to get lost in that story. Just got to try and make a concise story that can make a good point.
yeah, that's the other thing is how do you know what to include in the story? It depends on your business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like with the sales director client that you had, his story I would guess was a very long one, but how do you know what to leave out and what to leave in?
Well, I base it very much around their why. There's Simon Sinek with the golden circle. It's the why in the middle. Then there's how and what, and a lot of people start with the what. So I ask lots of searching questions. I do a workshop with them when I'm writing their story, and ask them what they love best about what they do and why they should get their customers to love them back. For what purpose, which is their why. Doing, selling what services compared to the competition, and what way do they stand out, and then ask all these sorts of questions, and I get them to look at a timeline of their life, and I look at the lows and the highs, and I get them to be really honest with me about what's happened in the bad times, and what they've learnt, and some of them go on. One person went on for 7 hours. That was when I started out and realized I can't make any money at this if I'm going to do this all the time. But yeah, some people have never told it before, their story, so I've got to take this information that I ask, all these searching questions, and condense it down into a core story which shows the pain the customers are going through. What if the life could be different, if their problems were solved? It's the story arc, with your help, because you're the best qualified to do it, and you've been through it already, and you've worn the t-shirt, and you've gone through lots of challenges yourself. And then a call to action, you come and work with me and that sort of thing. So crystallize it down, all this loads of stuff they give me, into one very core story of 300 words. And then once that's written, that can be put everywhere, because it's such a crystallized sort of specific story. But then once that core story is written, it could be embellished and made bigger. So that's what I do. Yeah, I just love it. It's a challenge, because some people just have to tease it out and try to coax it out of them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like being a psychologist in a way, trying to
Yeah. Yeah. I think I
figure
did
out.
actually feel a little bit uncomfortable with some of the stuff they told me, because it wasn't all relevant and stuff. And it was quite
Yeah.
personal stuff. but they had to almost get it out for me to tease out the gold nuggets of wisdom, that you had to be like the center of the story, so that becomes the heart of their messaging.
Yeah, yes, it's the fine art of not oversharing.
Yeah,
I
it's it.
wanted to say the scar, not the wound, is a fabulous concept, and it's the way of framing the story that makes it easier to share. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
so true.
quote, is that a quote that you made up, Catherine? Or is that,
No, that was Gillian. She told me that she'd read a book by Brené Brown. I've watched a lot of her TEDx talks. I
oh,
haven't actually
right, right.
read a book by Brené Brown. I've got to read one. But basically,
Yeah,
TED Talks. She said that's share from the scar, not the wound, and I just think that's such an
yeah,
amazing, insightful thing to say. When you think about
yeah,
it, it's going to take a while to get through those things, and it's maybe a bit early to share. So leave that and share it at a more opportune time when you can be a bit more objective about it. Yeah,
yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful quote. And it's so
yeah.
true. Trisha Lewis says, "Oh no, not another interesting book. Here it is on Goodreads. Weekly says Trickle." Yeah, I know, Trisha. My to read list is miles and
Mm.
miles long. And says Trickle, I read a long time ago. And it was just an amazing book. But it makes me sad in a way, reading reading it, because I thought it's so sad that people don't enjoy the job.
Oh, yeah,
And it's just you do spend most of your life in a 9 to 5 and don't
mm,
have enough
yeah,
vacation time, enough time with your families. And so I
no,
think this is part of the whole freelance movement, working for yourself, an increase in entrepreneurship.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's two sides to this, working for yourself, because, we can do something you really love, but you could do such long hours with being on social media all the time. It can really damage your personal life. So I think, it can turn a bit sour. So you've got to keep on pivoting and thinking of a new way to do things and not let the job take over. But to go and work I remember going on the train into London and seeing all these miserable people. Nobody spoke. They sat on the train and they just literally just sat there.
Uh,
And it was sad really that they were spending all their time, their lives just out of it, just not talking to anyone. It just seemed really sad. It was a penance, a bit like being a slave really. It's not right. No.
yeah, yeah. That reminds me when I started working full time, my last full time job. I thought there has to be more to life than this, waking from 8 to
Yeah.
4:30 every day, and it's just really all there is to life. And I got really depressed at the thought. Because
Yeah.
before that, I had freelanced for several years, and I loved it, being able to work
Yeah.
from home, and I was able to do all kinds of stuff, go to concert events, and hang out with my friends. And but then, because I put all my eggs in one basket as a freelancer, I had one main
Mm.
client, and that was it. But he was full time. It was full time. I thought, oh, I don't need any more clients. I can just have one client. But when that
Yeah.
client retired and moved to another state, the work dried up. I was
Yeah.
like, oh no, I have to go back to work now full time. So
Mm.
that's what I did. But then I got really depressed. I thought, there has to be more to life than this. I mean, I
Yeah.
what kind of life is this, just going to work every day and then come home, eat, watch TV, go to bed, and that's it? No.
No. No. It's not a nice way to live. It's just
Yeah.
a half life. It's not real life. Yeah. It's a bit like the Truman Show, that film, it go round and round and round, not in a real life anymore. Literally just playing it, living. But I got one as a contractor. I got one job, a contract through. It had no hours in it, and I said, "Oh, what are the hours?" They said, "Oh, it's It's when the work's finished. I said, I don't know. That's when that could be midnight. I mean, I really got worried about this, and they convinced me that actually, that it was fine, but it was 14-hour days when I got in there. There was no start and finish. As soon as you got in there, you just had to carry on until you dropped, literally. And I think that way of working is going to lead to burnout. It's just not good for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
that's why everybody says, "Thank God it's Friday and
yeah.
Blue Monday," and that's so miserable. But now
Oh,
I think people are learning their options outside of the 9 to 5, which is, I think, probably has saved many lives,
yeah,
Catherine. You can't
yeah.
leave yourself in a job, try something else, though, too. One
Mm,
is do have to kiss a few job frogs, of course. Catherine said that, not me. But yeah, this is true. What I was saying earlier about trying different jobs and seeing what you enjoy. Maybe you tap into something you didn't know you would enjoy, and then
yeah, yeah. I think if you do a little
hi,
few experiments.
Gabe. It's great
Mm,
to see you, Gabe. I haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're doing well. And Gabe says, "Hey, there's to one amazing
oh,
person to Jillian." I agree.
oh, thank you.
Robert says hello. Hello, Robert. I've known Robert for quite a few years now. He's a great guy. And so
Mm,
is Gabe. And Gabe says, "Hey, they hope this is the real Robert Berry and not our Robert." Okay. And good morning from the Better Connect Academy. Good morning, John. And Robert says, "My AI performs better than the real thing, so I send them everywhere." Oh, AI, Robert. Yeah, everybody's talking about AI. And
yeah,
do you think that Jillian says, "I love what you said, the
oh,
fine art of not overshare."
yeah. So important.
Not because I was talking to Catherine earlier about someone on LinkedIn who overshared, and it was way TMI. And
Yeah,
ever since then, I had followed him for a few years before that, and he was fine. I liked his post. I engaged with him. Then there was this one post where he really overshared about his personal life, and ever since then, I just cannot get that
yeah,
out of my mind. It's like stuck in my mind and totally colored my opinion of him. And I don't like to be judgmental. You live your life the way you want, as long as you don't hurt anybody. But it's just overstepped for me, and I think it probably for many others too.
yeah.
It's not really something
No,
talk.
I think if you do that once, that's it. You've ruined it for yourself. Your reputation's gone. It's people are going to remember you for the wrong things. So it's just not worth it. You just got to,
Yeah.
as- yeah, yeah. So
I mean,
you
do you
can,
think it's possible to overcome something like that, Catherine? If people make mistakes. Is it possible to recover from that and rescue your reputation?
yeah. I think you could almost being authentic is actually owning up to your own mistakes and responsibilities. So you could, without saying what it was, you could actually share something and say, "I know that I have possibly shared too much about myself in the past, but I regret that." And you could actually be honest about that, and you could bounce back from it. I really believe you could, because I think if you said you made a mistake, I think somebody's going to forgive you for that. So, but if you just forget about it or carry on doing it, that's the worst thing you could do, really. Yeah, but you've got to learn a lesson from it, because it's just not the right way to be, really. It's going to harm your reputation and affect your community, really, and word's going to get round. So, yeah,
Yeah, I think if it had perhaps to give him a little leeway, if it had been relevant to his business, might have been different, but it wasn't at all relevant to his business. So
no, no. No, I've had the same with somebody in America. It was I don't know what it was. It was something to do with some hobby that they had, and I didn't like what they were doing. And as soon as I saw that, I couldn't communicate with them anymore. So I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Catherine, is there a way that we can learn how to tell a story, our own story, and how can we hone our storytelling skill so that we better connect with our customers?
Well, I think if we really well, we can read books, which is helpful. I mean, there's various ones out there. Donald Miller Story Brand. I personally prefer not to read books because I actually prefer to actually collect stories from real life. Um, but I think if we know the hero's story and we can kind of replicate that in our stories, that really is a good start for 10. And Joseph Campbell wrote The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and it's 1949. I think it's the first book that really talked properly about the hero's journey. So books based on that, which I know Donald Miller is, and there's lots of other ones as well. So to find a book that you actually like the style of, and watch TED Talks and things like that. But the hero's story is the quest, sorry, the uh, stepping into a different world from an ordinary world, and uh, like Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, and kind of trying. She wants to go back home. She goes there accidentally from Kansas to Oz, and she encounters things that stop her progressing, which is the Wicked Witch of the North, who sends flying monkeys and crows and all sorts of horrible things her way. So there has to be a villain in the story, which could be ourselves, and then there needs to be allies like the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion, and there needs to be some kind of mentor advisor who can help us to get through our problems. But when we're telling our client story, the client needs to be the hero and we need to be the mentor. So these different characters: the villain, the mentor, the allies, the hero. And the story's in 3 acts. So it starts off with the context, and then it rises to a climax in the second act. And then the problems get too much, so we come in as the mentor. We're helping our customers and help them solve their problems. The third act is closure and conclusion. So you mirror the hero's story in in yours. It really helps. And if you know of a story from childhood that you like, that you've loved, like mine is Wizard of Oz or something else, or a film or a TV program, I think just use a structure, and that will help if a start of 10 if you're not used to doing it. But if you really to get hold of the hero's journey and embrace it and see where your story fits in that structure, it really helps, but not force it. I think we've got to we collect. It's good to collect stories as we're going around, sort of writing stories in our little notebook or our iPhone notes or whatever, and so we don't forget them and we can kind of build them in and
Right.
keep telling stories. But this first story of all has got to be our story with our why embedded in it. Once we've done that, then we can expand on it. Yeah, so it's a never-ending story, really.
Yes, the Donald Miller story brand. No, I have to say, it was kind of boring for me.
I find it
Um,
very boring. I'm
I
sorry, I
thought
did.
for a book
Yeah.
about, yeah, I found it really boring and I couldn't finish it. I
No,
know
I
it's about
couldn't.
telling
No.
stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
it's an important book to read, but maybe I'll finish it. But it
I've got
was,
a lot of half-read books on my shelf. I uh, buy lots of books, but the stories are not ones I resonate with. So if I find a story that I like a TV advert nationwide in the UK, they use a lot of really nice stories. I'll write that down or remember it, and I collect
yeah,
little stories, and I'll use them as examples. Um, yeah, so yeah, I do find them a bit boring because they're not our stories. And also, Gillian, we were talking about the other day, you I can't remember the ending of somebody else's story. I can't. So it's best that I have my own stories that I can
yeah.
share. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading a lot of nonfiction now. I just
Mm.
finished reading Behind the Beautiful Forever
Oh.
by Catherine Boo. Oh my gosh, talk about heartbreaking, sad,
Oh.
but these people live with such hope, for
Mm.
a better
Yeah.
future. But
Yeah. There's
That
a
is a
beautiful,
good life.
yeah.
It's
Oh, I
very
must read that. Yeah, I must read that. Um, I've read a book called The Midnight Library, which was a fantastic book.
everybody. I heard
Oh,
so much
it's so good, Anna. Yeah,
It was
yeah,
did you yeah, somebody else
yeah.
recommends, "Oh, you have to
So
read this
lovely.
book. It's one of those
Matt
books you have to read." Yeah.
Matt Haig. It's
Now I'm
about
reading
choosing the story because you think that you've made a mistake in the past, but actually, the story of the Library of Regrets or whatever it was called. You know, it might not be a bad thing. You didn't have that story, follow that story, and follow that route. That you know, it might have been a disaster. So the book really makes it realize that the life you've got now is the perfect life. You know, just make the best of it. Just make the best of it.
I gotta put that on my list.
Yeah,
Another
do.
book to put
Yeah,
on my list.
yeah.
And right now, and then I finished Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson.
Oh,
It's about the justice system here in the United States with Black people being on death row, and talk about depressing, but such an important story to read.
mm,
And uses the way Brian Stevenson wrote it was very factual, but
mm,
also you could see that he really cared about his clients. I mean, he got
mm.
personally close to his clients, and you can't help that
No.
because you're literally trying to get them off death row. And they're
Mm,
there for, they don't even belong on death row. They've been wrongly
yeah,
convicted. And it's a book that I think everybody needs to read. And then now I'm
yeah.
reading Words Break Cement about
Mm,
Pussy Riot in Russia, the
mm,
women in Russia, and their time in prison in Russia after protesting Putin's regime. So
yeah.
that's
Oh,
interesting. And now I'm starting to realize I read really dark stuff. And my mother says, you really need to read lighter topics. I mean, you're
yeah.
always reading depressing stuff, but I feel like this is so important.
It really makes you think differently. But I don't know, do you find when you go to bed at night reading a book like that might keep you awake? Because I like to read a fiction book at night, you know, sort of some short stories with a nice moral message. And I like rereading the classics. And one of my favorite books is Vanity Fair. It's such an amazing book. It's such an amazing book.
Oh,
And you can lose yourself in it. But you know, the factual books, I find my brain's kind of still working, and but there's a place for all of them, Juana. You know, I just love reading. They just are. They can be our therapy, really, can't they? They just can teach us so much. They really can.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm reading them at night. These
Mm,
factual books. So I'm like, but then I can't put it down. No,
no,
no.
yeah.
Like,
You
so
write down what you've read after, because I've got a little book and I try and write down what I've learned because I
yeah,
can't remember what I've, what
no,
I've read sometimes. Yeah, yeah. I read Green Lights as an Audible book, but I don't like read. Well, heard it, but I felt I couldn't remember very much after. Whereas I like a printed book. I just can't help myself. But obviously, you know, it take up a lot of room.
yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder how people listen to audiobooks. Is it the author of the book that's narrating, or is it other
Yeah,
people?
it was Matthew McConaughey reading it, and it was good because you felt he was talking to
Okay,
you, but it was actually quite violent in places, so you couldn't skip over it very well with an Audible book. Well, maybe you could, but I didn't work out quite how to do that. So it took me 7 hours to listen to, and I just didn't feel it was the same experience. But everything's different, and if you're driving a lot in the car, I suppose you've got to find ways to use the time effectively. Mm.
do you recommend it? Green light?
It's a really good book. It's got so many lessons about how to live your life. It's almost like creating your own film about your life that you would like to look back on and think that was a good life. It's actually he uses a lot of uh, idea. He processes it, but at the end by saying bumper stickers. It must be an American phrase, but you know what he's learned, and so there's a lot of little gems in there, which are lovely. I wonder if I got the printed book if it would feel different, but it's a massive book. It's a huge book, so I suppose Audible's got its place as well as Kindle and all the rest of it.
So I suppose he covers his entire life up until now. Is that why it's so long?
Yeah, he
It's
does. Yeah,
from
and
his childhood to now.
he does it by year. So he's got like starts off, and then the next chapter's about
Oh,
the next. And I thought, where is he in his life story now? And I got lost in the chronology of it. There was his whole life, and I think now he's trying to position himself as somebody to help people find themselves. You know, he's doing films, but I think he's now becoming a guru, kind of telling people how to live their life. That's what he's doing now. So I think the book was meant to open that chapter of his life up, which is quite interesting. But he actually, I admired him because he stopped working. He did rom-coms. He stopped working because he wanted to do more serious films, um, and then he just stopped. You know, and he could have earned millions, but he just decided he didn't want to do that anymore. So took a couple of years out. I think that'd be good for all of us to kind of take a bit of time out and do that now and again, because we can end up on the roller coaster.
yeah, I think so. I think he's a pretty good dramatic actor. I've seen
Mm,
him in some serious films. He is good. But
mm.
it's interesting. It's not something you see very often, an actor veering off into maybe personal development, self-help.
Personal development, yeah. He's running a
Feel
for yeah. Yeah, he's doing a lot of work with Tony Robbins where he's helping people to
right.
find
I
themselves, yeah. Which is good, but interesting, but it's a bit of a diversion, I think, really. Mm.
oh yes, Trisha says, I once played the Good Witch in a production. You did? I
Oh,
wish I could have seen that. And she asked, do you know Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott? Yes, and I love that book. It's one of my favorites. I think every writer should read that book. And of
mm.
course, On Writing by Stephen King is one of the best books about writing in general. And I think it's
Yeah.
such a fabulous book. And I reread that book sometimes. I've reread it 3 times
Mm.
already, On Writing. And Bird by Bird is a wonderful, it's a short book. It's not very
Mm.
long. So
Mm.
it's a terrific book. And then there's a book, oh my gosh, what is it called? By Anne Fadiman about writing also. Anyway, I have to share my list with you, Catherine.
Yeah, please do. We've got another conversation coming here, but I'd love to know more because
I
I've scribbled
know.
down a few. But
How did
yeah,
that
I
how did,
love books. I've got books everywhere, but I
I
just
do too.
need more ideas because you kind of end up with your own preferred list, but there's so many to read, aren't there? Really? Yeah, don't want to miss
In
any.
fact, I have this book where I even write down
Yeah,
books to check out.
yeah,
Books to check out.
yeah. That's good.
Journal. I got
Yeah,
it as a Christmas gift from my dad a few years ago, and the list is so long. It's not full, but I'm thinking I don't. There's not enough time in our life to read all the books we want.
no, no. And I don't know about you, but I like to reread books. I don't know, but and then kind of rereading those, but there's others to read. So it's that, and I don't like to get rid of books. I've got so many books. I've got clutter everywhere. I need to, so maybe
No,
there's a place for
I
Kindle
have
and
to.
that. Yeah, I can't get rid of a book. It's just awful. Yeah, it's one of my friends. It just seems
Yeah,
wrong. Mm,
I tend to get rid of the paperbacks more, not
yeah,
the small paperbacks more. I had to get rid of a lot of books because I was running out. The
yeah,
closet behind
yeah,
me is full of books, so
yeah,
there's still a lot more cleaning to do. But anyway, we have to cut this short,
yeah,
and I know this
yeah.
is
Oh,
really,
it's been lovely. Yeah.
yes,
Oh, it's been such a nice conversation.
talk
Thank
about
you.
books.
Yeah. Can I just share a quote that I really love? Um, it's Joseph Campbell. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek.
Oh, Joseph
And
Campbell,
I really
yes.
love that one because it's about not being frightened of being vulnerable, to go into the dark, ditch and lie there for a while and learn something. But really, if we not we're brave enough to go into the cave and find the treasure, then we can bring it with us on the journey and share it with us and add meaning to us, our own lives as well as others. So it's a brilliant quote, and I think it sums up what we've been talking about really well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I have to check that out. So,
Yeah.
Catherine, I was just really enjoyed our conversation today about storytelling, and I hope that everyone watching got something, a main takeaway from it. So, thank you so much for joining us, me
Thank
this
you. It's
morning
been
and
my
you this
pleasure.
afternoon. And thank you everyone for joining us. And I will see you next week. Will be talking with Katerina Rivera, a disability inclusion speaker. She is both blind and hard of hearing.
Yeah.
So I'll be talking with her next week, same time, same day. And so I hope you'll join me then. In the meantime,
Yeah.
have a great day and rest of your
Thanks.
week. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye. Bye, everyone.